Hello and welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I'm your host Tyrant, and today we're taking a look at another Lord of the Rings sword. Now this is obviously an ongoing series that we have a bunch of episodes on. We've done a lot of the main swords at this point, and I wanted to look at something a little bit more niche today, and that would be the URUK-HAI sword. Yes, I think this one gets glossed over a little bit because it's not as pretty as some of the other swords, but it definitely has some interesting characteristics and I would say context surrounding it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our own version and put it to the test and actually see if the URUK-HAI sword is a little bit better than you might have first assumed. So when it came to the orc sword, obviously we're trying to just create something as quick, as cheap, and as dirty as possible. Literally just trying to create the most basic thing that we can to see how the design performs, especially like in the films. Super mass manufactured, super crappy essentially. So I grabbed this bit of flat steel bar, traced in what I wanted to be my handle shape, cut it out with the angle grinder, cut it to length, and then cut a spike that we are going to obviously take out to welding and weld to the main blade. Ground back those welds and obviously give it a nice little bit of a leather wrap so it's not too harsh on the hands. And with that being said, after it has its edge, it's ready for testing. Dirt cheap, super simple and easy. So let's get out there and see what this design is truly capable of. Manta Sleep, premium quality sleep masks. If you have trouble sleeping like I do, you might want to consider picking up one of these bad boys. Now this one here is the Pro Mask, and it comes with a couple of cool features. Obviously, it comes in a nice little box. It has a traveling case and also a bag inside that holds additional eyelets. But when it comes to the mask itself, it's made out of very premium and nice feeling quality material that is quite breathable. I was actually thoroughly impressed about it. Obviously, we also have removable eye cups here, so you can actually put on different ones, which I personally recommend, specifically these here. Now, I had no idea that I would like these as much as I did, but these here are weighted eye cups. These can be put in the fridge, so you can actually cool them down, and they also give the mask a little bit of heft, so when you're laying in bed and you're sleeping with it, it doesn't move as much because it's not as light. Specifically in the mornings is where it's made a real difference. Usually when I wake up in the morning, I'm awake. That's it. End of story. I can't get back to sleep. It doesn't matter if it's 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, it doesn't matter. This has helped me get back to sleep in the morning and get a couple of extra hours because obviously it removes all of that light pollution. So for that reason alone, I can recommend it. So if you want to pick one of these up, there'll be a link down below. Use code TESTED to get an extra 10% off, and it will also help support the channel. So thank you Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's episode. Let's get back to it. So here is our simple orc sword ready to go. I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I think it's pretty close. The weight on it, like the weight profile and stuff, isn't actually too terrible at all. You can still move it around quite light and nimble while also having a lot of presence in the blade. In terms of the handle comfort, I think it is exactly what I would expect from this sort of blade, if I'm being, like, let's be real here. It's just a little bit of a leather wrapped handle. I do think on the original there was some wood scales. I didn't have time for that, so I just used some thick hide, and I think it's perfectly comfortable. Okay, so let's talk about the orc sword a little bit here. Are we even going to call it a sword? We'll call it a sword, all right. So, like I said in the original kind of ranking episode, I think that it is perfectly acceptable for what it tries to accomplish, and that is essentially a mass-manufactured, as quick, dirty, and cheap blade to arm a force of rabid orcs, right? So, is it any good though? Well, this is where I think we get into a little bit of the nuance. In terms of a chopper, right? It is a good chopper. Did I get the camera then? Damn it. It does chop, like that's kind of its goal, right? There is one gripe that I have with it. There is also one feature that it has that I really like. Kind of like, really? This right-angled pick on the back, this is going to be really cool. We're going to test this against a couple of different armor types because I think it's going to be a monster. However, I really think we should bring up that the biggest flaw we have here, no thrusting capabilities. In terms of the guard, right, it doesn't have any hand protection. This one is complicated because there's not really going to be the risk of actually sliding onto the blade and cutting your fingers off, because you're not going to be thrusting with it. You're not even going to be thrusting with it to begin with. So that is kind of eliminated. In terms of the hand protection to actually, you know, like kind of defend, right, and attack, this one is also contextual. It means that there are specific types of guards that you would want to use to kind of minimize your hand, you know, getting hit. Instead of having a cross guard that you're able to attack and, you know, defend with, you kind of just have to use different types of guards that are going to minimize the chance of your hand getting hit in the first place. So this one here is Dark Sister. I do have a full episode coming on this one somewhat soon. This here, I thought was a good sort of length to kind of compare to, because this blade here obviously is able to thrust. It has that hand protection, whereas this is kind of the opposite, right? No hand protection and can't thrust at all. And so I thought these were polar opposites of one another. However, because this one is so thrust centric, it means that that tip is quite thick for the thrust, but at the same time, it's not going to have as much blade presence when it actually cuts and slices through things. Whereas this, like, I reckon I could go chop down a tree with this. That's what I mean by how much blade presence we actually have here. Then on the other side, when you actually want to hit something with the pick, you're going to switch it around. The problem is that there is contouring on the handle. So how does it actually feel in practice when you switch it around and want to use the pick, penetrate some armor or whatever, what have you, right? It doesn't feel terrible, but it doesn't feel comfortable either. Like, it's not unwieldable. I reckon I could definitely use this and I can definitely hit some things, as I will do in a minute, but it's just not as comfortable as if the handle was symmetrical. Then you could easily, you know, kind of hit with the primary edge, bring it back around and hit with the secondary edge. Now, like I mentioned in the first episode when we spoke about this, you also can obviously do reverse edge strikes, but you are going to have a lot less kind of force than if you were just to use it like for a primary strike to really bring it down. So there is that context. It's not terrible, but it's definitely serviceable. It's just a little bit hard to hit on this stand. Did you know that 69% of you are not subscribed? Nice. But today I would appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. As much as I don't want to move from the 69 number, I would like if you guys subscribed, because that would make my day. I hope you guys are enjoying the episode. Let's get back to it. So we have our good old trusty construction helmet here. We also have our mail and our gambeson. Let's see how ruthless and deadly this point is in general. I really hope you guys can see that on camera. Let's start with the helmet, because I reckon it's going to pop through like it's not even there. Yeah. It is quite fun though. See if you guys can see. Yeah, we've got a good couple of, you know, an inch in there, inch and a half. Just give me a moment. Okay, next up, let's try the mail to get in there. Riveted mail, I've got my point here. Let's see if we can get through. I actually do expect this to be able to get through. We'll see what happens though. That was interesting. So yes, that did get through. That busted through a link, but I felt that roll in my hand. I thought that would actually moved a bit more than I thought it would. Yeah, that's through 100%. Like, yeah. So it definitely busts through mail easy, very, very easy. That link didn't break though, it just elongated. Interesting. Let's hit it over here. Once again. Yeah, we've busted through. So that's about an inch there. I mean, this is exactly what I expect from this type of point, right? Like, you have so much force that you're generating and concentrating right here that it will literally bust through most things. Now, these are gonna bust through like plate, right? I mean, honestly, depending how thick the spike is, depending how hard the strike is, depending if it's heat treated, depending how thick it, like, you see what I mean by there's a lot of context and caveats there. But for softer armors, for things like gambeson, you know, and mail, yeah, you're gonna get through. So, is it a good design? And this is where I come back to it and I'm like, well, it does chop really well, which is awesome. It's also super dirt cheap and easy to produce, and especially mass manufacture, which is what you want for the AUKs. Is it something that you're gonna be kind of like, you know, kind of dueling with a whole bunch, right? And fighting people with, you know, the long swords and all that sort of stuff. Not really, right? I think that's the interesting context here. And when we do see that kind of dynamic happen, specifically with Aragorn, he's fighting, I can't remember the orc's name, is it Lurtz or something? But he has a shield, right? So he has a shield and he has one of these. So that does level the playing field, obviously, without having that guard. Yeah, the gambeson has no chance at all of stopping this point. Not in... Oh, that was not good. I hit the steel core. Oh, yeah, bent the tip on that one. But you definitely could, in combat, you know, bring that down and then kind of, you know, bring people wherever you want with it, which is, so it is both simultaneously good for, you know, trying to penetrate through different types of armor, but at the same time, it also does have some functionality in that particular configuration. I know the lighting may look dark on camera today, guys. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can really do about it. The sun is out, this area, this is just how it looks, right? So I have to make do. This here is a coconut. We'll do a little bit of the coconut, then we'll do some wood because we obviously have the big stump underneath it, because these are the mediums that this type of blade really kind of shines with. That is something hard that it can absolutely shatter. And obviously wood, right? Yeah, in the hand, hitting something a little bit more dense, a little bit more fibrous, a little bit more hard is really nice. Man, finding a good shot to be able to do an outro today has been a bit of a mission in and of itself, because the lighting is so spotty. Things look blown out, things look done. Anyway. All right, it is time to get to our final thoughts for the URUK-HAI sword, the design of it. Now, I should mention that I think, just in terms of a base level, practicality and functionality, yes, this thing can do a lot of things. I mean, I was just cutting a tree with it, a fallen down tree, obviously, and this hook was able to help me, you know, kind of like ice picks or whatever they are, and just pull the brush away. Actually really good in terms of like an agricultural type thing, obviously, but in terms of a weapon of war, obviously there is that context that that is as economically viable as possible, because you don't care really too much if they live or die. That's the whole point. You have so many of them, you're breeding an army, so just give them pieces of steel and then hopefully they go to town. I think the design is rather reasonable for what it is and given the context, but that is enough of that. It is time to get into Tyrant's initial thoughts, score, or tits for short, starting off with comfort. I'm gonna give it a nice 8 out of 10 for comfort. When you're holding it in, obviously with that primary edge facing down, how you would, you know, chop and cleave with it, it's primary motion, it's rather comfortable. I mean, you just have a contoured handle with a leather wrap. When you switch your grip around to be able to hit with the pick, it's a little less comfortable, but it's still completely serviceable. I just think that if the primary focus is you want to be able to use both sides of the blade, it should be more comfortable, so having a symmetrical handle would just fix that instantly. So I had no problems with the comfort, so I think an 8 is perfectly fair. When it gets up to the wieldability, I mean, it is rather top heavy, as this type of weapon obviously would be, but it's still rather quick and nimble, right? Like, you can still use this particular blade perfectly reasonable, and especially when you factor in how strong the orcs or the URUK-HAI are, yeah, like, wieldability is fine. It's not a particularly well-balanced blade, but it's not balanced in that way because of its design. So I think a 9 is fair and reasonable. Next up, design. Okay, I'm going to give it a 7 for design, because most of the things I think are perfectly fine, and when you factor in the context, you're just trying to pump out as many of these crappy things as possible. It's really good for those purposes. However, I just can't overlook it not having a thrusting point. I mean, like we said, you are going to be using this in battle, right? And in battle, you're going to be using armor. That's what this pick is for, so you're able to get through that armor, which is awesome. But this large chopping section against armor is going to be pretty much useless unless it's very, very soft armor and you're dealing that blunt force. So just having a thrusting point on this, not only would it not take that much more material, especially because you'd think how thick and chunky this is, but it's also not any extra work. It literally only has upsides and no downsides to adding a thrusting point. So a 7 for design I think is perfectly fair and reasonable given its context and how you would want to use it. And then last but not least, effectiveness. I think it's actually going to be pretty high on the effectiveness for what it is, which is a chopping and cleaving type weapon with obviously that pick on the end. It does those sorts of aspects, which is what it is designed to do, really, really effectively. So, I mean, I can't mark it down because I want it to be more effective, but for what it does and how it is used, it is very effective. So I think a 9 out of 10 for effectiveness is more than adequate and fair. That gives us a final score of 33 out of 40 for the URUK-HAI sword. Again, it's a solid design that is functional, that actually works. There's a couple of things that where it's like, you would change this, but given the context of what they are and what it's used for, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're going to give a bunch of rabble a weapon, this is good enough, it'll get the job done, which it will. And that is the main point. But that is going to be all. Thank you guys for watching. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. And if you want to check out any other episode in our Lord of the Rings series, because we've done a bunch of episodes at this point, there'll be obviously a playlist there as well. Thank you guys for watching. I think I said that. I'll see you next week in another episode. Have a good one.